You don't even remember when it started. Just one day, thinking felt easier than choosing. And you never really stopped. You keep calling it being thorough. But it's not. It's stalling. It's hiding. It's needing every outcome rehearsed because the real ones never felt safe. You tell yourself it's just caution, but it feels more like fear with a to-do list. And still you wait. For your brain to give you permission. For a version of yourself that knows what to do. But what if she's not coming? What if there's no version of you that ever felt ready, just one that got really good at waiting? You ever stare at a message so long it starts to rot? Not because it's wrong, not because you don't know what to say, but because your brain convinces you that every version is the wrong one. Too short, too vague, too late, too much. So you wait, just a little longer, just until it feels right, but it never does. And the worst part? No one knows how loud it is in your head while you're being silent. They just see scene. They just see delay. They just don't see you at all. You tell yourself you're being considerate, that you're giving yourself space, that you'll respond when you're in the right headspace. But what if there is no right space? What if this is the loop? One that dresses up like thoughtfulness, but smells like fear if you stand close enough. You weren't always like this. You used to decide things faster, used to move without this constant hum of what if I ruin it. But now, even simple choices feel dangerous. As if every small action opens up 1,000 doors, and behind each one is someone you might disappoint. And somewhere along the line, you stop trusting your own yes, because even your yes came with conditions: approval, safety, outcome. You weren't choosing, you were calculating survival. Here's the part that still stings. You got good at it. So good, no one ever questioned how hard you were working, just to make a choice feel safe. Even now, you can't tell if you're being responsible, or just scared again. Because you want to reply, you want to start, you want to say yes and mean it. But there's this silent alarm that goes off every time you try. It says, not yet. Think it through. Wait for a better moment. And so you wait. But nothing changes. And the world doesn't pause with you. Deadlines pass. Texts gather dust. Opportunities dry up, quietly, politely, while you overthink them into oblivion. People think you forgot. But you didn't. You never forget. You remember too much. You carry every outcome, every version of what could go wrong. You carry them until your own body feels like clutter. Sometimes you imagine clearing it all out, starting fresh. New habits, new routines, new self. But even that becomes another loop. You plan your restart like it's a thesis. You script your recovery before you even take the first breath. And when it doesn't go perfect, you shut down. Not dramatically, just fade. Turn off the lights, disappear under the weight of one more thing you didn't finish. Here's what no one sees. It's not about being lazy. It's about being tired. Tired of the mental rehearsals. Tired of pretending the loop is control. Tired of explaining yourself to people who only see the silence, not the storm. You try to fix it with productivity. You pile up planners, systems, apps. You say, I just need better structure. You say, this time I'll stick to it. But deep down you know, it's not the tools. It's not the routine. It's that you're building ladders in a room with no ceiling. And you still think climbing faster will get you out. You've become the person who over-prepares and under-moves, who knows all the right answers but can't type a reply. You didn't mean to turn thinking into avoidance. It just happened, slowly. At first it felt smart, protective. Like maybe if you just planned enough, you'd never feel that old sting again. The one where someone said you were wrong, or careless, or too much. You probably know this feeling, even if you've never said. That low hum of guilt that shows up even when you've done nothing wrong, the kind that whispers, you could have done more. You should have acted sooner. You failed, but softly. And then comes the freeze. Not dramatic, not visible, but real. A slow erosion of choice. Not because you don't care, but because you cared too much, for too long, without rest. You wake up and don't know why everything feels heavy. You open a blank document and stare at it like it's asking for your soul. You cancel on friends you actually wanted to see. Not because you're ungrateful, but because your mind is tired of needing to be perfect just to feel safe showing up. And the loop rewards you with silence. No decisions. No risks. Just a padded room made of maybes. But silence isn't rest, and thoughts aren't peace. They're noise that looks like logic. They're panic dressed up as preparation. And somehow, even with all the thinking, you still don't feel ready. You just feel looped. Not by life, but by the version of you that still thinks control will keep you from getting hurt. Even now, you're probably replaying what you should have done differently this week. Even now, you're stuck between rest and guilt. Even now, you're thinking instead of living. And the loop doesn't care if it costs you time, it just wants to keep you safe, even if that safety feels like slow disappearance. And the loop doesn't care if it costs you time, it just wants to keep you safe, even if that safety feels like slow disappearance. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is how convincing it became. How it didn't feel like hiding, just being careful. How the fear started dressing up as strategy, as logic, as just being thorough. You didn't even notice when thinking stopped being a tool and became a wall. And this is where something quietly broke. You used to trust yourself. You used to feel the shape of a decision and know it belonged to you. Now, you look at every option and only see consequences. You try to act, but second-guessing shows up first. You call it being cautious, but really, you just don't want to disappoint anyone. Even if that means disappointing yourself, quietly, consistently, invisibly. And what's left after that? When every move feels like a risk, and every silence feels like proof that you've already failed before you began? What do you do when showing up feels heavier than disappearing? There's a kind of grief that comes not from losing someone, but from realizing you lost access to parts of yourself. The boldness, the instinct, the quiet certainty that you can handle this. You stopped hearing that voice, and you never asked why, because you were busy thinking, busy solving what was never yours to carry. Busy rehearsing a version of life where no one gets hurt, except the part of you that never gets picked. Right here is where you got used to disappearing. And not in a loud, dramatic way, just in moments, little slips. You laugh when you don't feel it. You nod even when your mind screams no. You type sounds good when nothing about it feels good. And it works. Until the ache starts showing up in places that don't have names. In your sleep. In your delay to answer. In your stomach, every time your phone lights up. You don't remember the last time you made a decision without checking it against someone else's imagined disappointment. You don't even know what you want anymore, only what won't upset anyone. And here's the fracture no one sees. You've built a life around the illusion of peace, but it's only peaceful if you stay silent. So you smile, you think it through, you take one more day to figure it out, but it never ends, does it? What if you stopped knowing who you are, but kept pretending you did? What do you do when rest feels more dangerous than exhaustion? What if no one ever really knew you, because you never felt safe enough to show them? This isn't a bad day. It's a pattern collapse. Silent, lived, unnoticed. You didn't break down, you just stopped showing up, even to yourself. And no one asked why, because you never made a sound. Because the loop taught you how to look okay, long enough for no one to question when you weren't. And somewhere in that silence, you forgot how to ask for yourself back. Maybe it was never about the choices. Maybe it was the quiet panic of being seen choosing wrong. You weren't waiting for the perfect plan. You were waiting for the fear to leave your body. It never did. There are days you move through entire conversations without being in them. Days you nod at your own life like you're watching someone else live it. You tell yourself you're fine. Because fine doesn't ask questions, because collapsing takes too much energy, and disappearing is just quieter. You probably don't remember the first time you called that safety, but you remember how it felt, still, controlled, almost peaceful if you didn't look too close. It wasn't silence, it was you, trying not to be too much again. And this is the part no one ever teaches you how to name, when even your rest feels like failure. When even your stillness carries shame? What if it was never laziness? What if it was your body finally asking you to stop performing clarity? And what if the loop wasn't a flaw, but a memory of every moment you had to hold it together alone? You didn't flinch. That's how deep it got. And maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're just tired of moving without ever arriving. You don't have to figure it all out. Just don't disappear mid-thought.